Hey guys, welcome to another Derailleur rebuild video. Today we're fixing this 400LX rear derailleur. Make sure you have the right one. Just check on the back. Make sure it says M400. This also applies to the 500LX, a slightly better version than the 400. To take this thing apart, some tools you're going to need are a hex set, pliers, a pick, and a nut driver or a wrench. After you took the pulleys off, now you have the option to service one of these two springs, and for this you're also going to need a screwdriver. The spring on this knuckle is a lot easier to service and it requires removing this pin over here. I recommend doing this one because it's a lot easier than the P knuckle. First, just grab a hold of the cage and unscrew this little pin here. Now it's going to spring back and just make sure to hold it. Hold on to it. And the final step to the spring is just unscrewing this little screw. Now we just pop off the cage and the spring. Now you have the final option to service the P-knuckle spring. It's a lot harder of a job, but I do recommend it if you want the most performance out of these old derailleurs. Alright, so what you're going to do is you get your pick in that little groove over here and push it outwards. And also hang on to this because it will spring out on you. So push this pin over and it springs out. First comes off the metal retaining ring and the plastic washer. Then the bolt, along with another seal, and the spring, which is completely dry. Now this is as far as this derailleur comes apart. As you can see, someone serviced this in its lifetime. There's some grease in there. This is very dry, so it's good we're doing both of these, making sure we're all staying lubricated. To clean off the derailleur, you want to use some type of either bike degreaser, chain degreaser, anything that'll get all this dirt and grease off. If you are using something more harsh like brake cleaner, for example, make sure to stay away from the plastic parts around because they will degrade those. If you have rust on some of the components, you can brush them off with a brush or use some aluminum foil, or you could use some heavy rust dissolvers. In my case, I'm using this ultrasonic cleaner. All I do is just pour some water in there and some soap. So after cleaning down the derailleur, you now have the option to do some polishing. This will just make your derailleur look better and it will protect it. A couple polishes I use are Quick-Glo for chrome, and I also use Autosol for aluminum parts. So I have done some chrome waxing on this cage already, this bolt, and I will be doing some polishing on this parallelogram as well as some touch up on the main black part right there. Alright guys, so as you can see here, I did some polishing and some touch up on the derailleur. I used a Sharpie for this and it turned out kind of magenta color, so just lesson learned, don't use Sharpie for touch up on black stuff. Alright, now next thing, moving on to the assembly, one thing you're going to need is grease. So just make sure to take out the B limit screw out of that little spot. That will help you put the spring in. Alright, first thing you're going to do is just get the seal and make sure its groove is pointing upwards and slide it onto the bolt. Now you just want to get the inside of the cage all greased up and the bolt too. And then just go ahead and slide it in. Now you're going to go ahead and want to put the spring in. Doesn't matter which way you put it in because both sides are equal length. Here comes the hard part of getting this part over here. I usually like to use this little part where the B screw goes into, and using a pair of pliers to kind of maneuver it over and then push down. Once you do get it in, just grab your clip put it on and then use a pair of pliers to kind of that. After you're done, just make sure to screw back in the limit screw, and that's essentially the hardest part of the rebuild done. Now comes the second part of the binnacle spring. Just make sure you grease up the spring and this little shaft here. And you might be running, oh, which one of these holes do I put it in? So this hole right here will give you a less tighter spring. This will give you more performance, so just choose whatever one you want and make sure you put the long end in first into that hole. Now once you got the spring in, you're going to aim for that little hole in there. Just make sure the short end goes in that hole. Once you get it in, you feel that it's engaging in all the way, you can grab that screw and screw it in. You can also see here we have an SGS cage, which means it's the longest cage version, which will give us actually more leverage. Screw it in all the way, make sure it's tight if you're not using Loctite. Now you'll find that your derailleur looks like this, and that's not how it's supposed to look like, so you want to turn it over. Now you want to just pull back the cage, bear through the pain. You can put a little bit of a cloth there if you want, and screw in this little pin. Alright, now putting on the first pulley, I just use a little magnet to keep the bolt in place. So first you want to do, just put on the washer. Alright, so you want to put a little bit of lube on that bolt, slide on the pulley, and you want a little bit just in between on that steel part to keep it all nice and smooth. Alright, and then put on the second washer and screw on the cage. Again, same thing for this pulley, just a little bit of grease on both of those edges. Again, remember to tighten down those pulley bolts and put on the clamp and the barrel adjuster, and then you've got yourself a fully rebuilt derailleur. Anyways guys, subscribe for more rebuild videos. It's free and it really helps me out. So if you have an older derailleur like this, don't replace it, just rebuild it. And remember, don't be afraid to use those older parts, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.